Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack the fascinating biography of an absolutely extraordinary historical object. We usually think of history in terms of, well, people, right? Battles, dates, big historical figures. But sometimes an object, a single physical artifact, can witness and endure so much that it essentially takes on a life of its own. So today we're looking at 4 centuries of history through the lens of one incredible, enduring figure.
Let's dive right into this with a bit of a riddle. Who is the best dressed, most kidnapped, and oldest surviving icon in America? It kind of sounds like the setup for a Hollywood thriller, doesn't it? Or maybe a fashion documentary? Well, the answer isn't a celebrity, and it's not a politician. It is a 30-inch wooden statue with a 400-year history right here in the United States. Today, we are going to trace her unbelievable journey.
Section 1. America's Oldest Madonna, a 15th century mystery.
So she stands just about 30 inches tall, originally carved in the style depicting the Madonna and Child. Now, some old records state she is carved from willow wood. But, and here's where the mystery really deepens, recent analysis using dendrochronology, that's tree ring dating, done by the University of Arizona, well, it revealed something astonishing. She was actually crafted from 2 entirely different types of wood. This means her origins, which likely date back to the Renaissance period between the 1400s and 1600s, are even more complex and historically ambiguous than anyone originally thought. It's like a giant historical puzzle.
After her mysterious creation somewhere between the 15th and 17th centuries, she makes this massive journey. She was brought all the way from Mexico City to the newly colonized area of Santa Fe, New Mexico, by a Franciscan friar named Fray Alonso de Benavides. The Archdiocese commonly cites 1625 as her arrival year, where she acted as a figure of comfort for the new colonists. Benavides even explicitly recorded her presence in his journal on January 25, 1626. From this point on, she is a permanent resident of the American Southwest.
Section 2. 4 centuries of survival. Fire, war, and ransom.
I want you to think for a second about how fragile a 30-inch piece of wood actually is. Got it? Now consider the violent, earth-shattering historical shocks she somehow endured over the last 400 years. We know she arrived in 1625, but by 1680, the region was completely engulfed in the Pueblo Revolt, a major uprising by the indigenous Pueblo people against Spanish colonizers. Then in 1693, she was brought back during the reconquest by Don Diego de Vargas. And, jumping centuries ahead, she even faced a completely wild modern crisis in 1973.
Let's go back to the 1680 Pueblo Revolt for a second. During the uprising, her church was set on fire. In the absolute midst of this chaos, the violence, and the desperate retreat of the Spanish settlers, someone made the conscious, incredibly dangerous decision to rescue this specific 30-inch wooden statue from a burning building. She was carried to safety in El Paso del Norte, surviving an event that literally wiped out much of the colonial infrastructure.
But her dangers weren't just in colonial times. In a truly jarring modern twist, in 1973, she was kidnapped from her chapel and held for ransom. I mean, no way, right? A 400-year-old priceless artifact, just stolen. Thankfully, she was recovered and returned to her home. But it really goes to show you the incredibly unpredictable journey this artifact has been on.
Section 3. The best dressed woman, a wardrobe like no other.
Now, you might be wondering, how on earth can a wooden statue be considered a fashion icon? Well, it is entirely driven by the community's devotion. 300, or actually, by some estimates, over 330. That is the staggering number of custom-made garments in her massive wardrobe. This isn't just some museum piece sitting untouched behind a pane of glass. She is actively cared for, fully outfitted, and constantly dressed by her devotees in Santa Fe.
And this wardrobe is incredibly diverse, reflecting a wide array of cultural contributions. She often wears classic blue and white dresses with gold trim, but get this, Eskimo villagers in Holy Cross, Alaska actually gifted her a custom ermine cape. During the annual Santa Fe Indian Market, she's dressed in traditional Native American attire, including a manta. Perhaps most touchingly, she is adorned with human hair wigs, often fashioned from hair donated by cancer survivors. Add to that a whole collection of priceless crowns and jewelry, and you can really see how people from all walks of life contribute to her care.
It's honestly no wonder she has earned the affectionate community nickname, the best-dressed woman in Santa Fe. This isn't just a quirky fact, It illustrates the deep, personal, and ongoing attachment the local community has to this historical figure. She is treated with the care and reverence of a living queen.
Section 4. A Legacy of Devotion. The Caretakers.
So, who does all this? The immense responsibility of maintaining 300 dresses, securing priceless jewelry, and organizing her public appearances falls to La Cofradía de la Conquistadora. This is a dedicated religious confraternity, basically an association of individuals united under the church who are specifically tasked with her care. They're her official caretakers. The cofradia even employs a sacristana, a person whose specific job is to meticulously dress the icon, swap out her veils, crowns, and wigs, and maintain her dedicated chapels.
The cofradia is also in charge of her annual movement. Based on the vow made by Don Diego de Vargas all the way back in 1692 to give thanks for his successful reconquest, the statue is carefully removed from the Cathedral Basilica of St. Francis of Assisi every single summer. She's then carried in a solemn procession to the Rosario Chapel, where Nova Masses are held in her honor. Finally, she's returned to the cathedral just as the famous Fiesta de Santa Fe begins. Fun fact, it's the oldest Marian festival in the United States.
Her significance is so deeply rooted that it actually caught the attention of the highest levels of the Catholic Church. In 1960, she was granted a canonical coronation by Pope John XXIII. It's a super rare honor that adds a whole other layer of historical and religious weight to her biography, validating her centuries of cultural impact directly from the Vatican itself.
Section 5. From Conquest to Peace, an Evolving Identity.
Over 400 years, the cultural landscape of the Southwest has changed dramatically, and remarkably, the statue's very name has shifted to reflect the healing of those historical wounds. When she arrived in 1625, she was known as Our Lady of the Assumption, a figure meant to bring comfort to the early colonists. But after the Pueblo Revolt, when Don Diego de Vargas brought her back in 1693 during his military campaign to retake Santa Fe, he renamed her La Conquistadora, or Our Lady of the Conquest. So she transitioned from a symbol of comfort to a symbol of the Spanish Reconquest.
Fast forward to the late 20th century, the name La Conquistadora carried some heavy historical baggage, right? It represented a period of conflict and conquest over the Native American populations. So, in 1992, to help ameliorate tensions and recognize the shared history of Spanish descendants and Native Americans, Archbishop Robert Sanchez officially bestowed upon her a new title, Our Lady of Peace. She is still also lovingly known as Our Lady of Conquering Love, maintaining a link to her past while looking toward a harmonious future.
Today, she essentially serves as a bridge. She stands as an impartial symbol representing the deeply intertwining histories of the Southwest. Think about it. She wears Spanish gold and Native American mantas. She survived a revolt and a reconquest, and now she represents a modern desire for peace and unity among all the inhabitants of New Mexico.
We can see this duality beautifully captured in a quick excerpt from her traditional prayer. O Lady of Conquering Love, convert by his divine power the enemies of his peace. It's this fascinating blend of her historical legacy of conquering, now channeled entirely toward achieving peace. It encapsulates the history of conflict and the ultimate hope for harmony just perfectly. Which leaves us with this final thought to ponder. How does a 30-inch wooden statue carved hundreds of years ago from two different types of wood hold the collective memory and the healing of a 400-year-old cultural collision? Her survival through fires, wars, and ransom, clothed in the donations of cancer survivors and indigenous peoples alike, tells the story of America in a way no textbook ever could. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I highly encourage you to keep exploring the history that is hiding right in plain sight.